Hi, everyone. This is our video that is hopefully educational about our mm, field of translation, and it's called Audiovisual Translation for Latin America, the Cold Hard Facts. I am presenting this topic for the brand new ATA's AVD YouTube channel. That is the American Translators Association's Audiovisual Division. I want to introduce you briefly to who we are, what we do, and why there is discrimination when it comes to rates and perks in our industry. Well, this is my name, a long name, so just Anna. I'm Anna, and my audiovisual translation background, just very briefly, is that I, started out, I've been doing translation and QC of audiovisual content since the 90s for broadcasting, cable TV, studios, networks, streaming platforms. I catered for the thriving DVD and Blu-ray market for a decade back in the day, which was an amazing time to be an audiovisual translator with the best rates, by the way. I then transitioned to streaming media in 2014 as this is what was happening in our media. And I've been an audiovisual translation educator at international institutions, conferences, and events for approximately the last 5 years. Okay, so let's get into it. So what is audiovisual translation? Well, basically, the audiovisual translation is done either by rewriting the dialogue or revoicing. So rewriting is also called known as time text or subtitling. And also we have the SDH, which is the type of subtitling that we do for the hard of hearing and deaf people that need this aid. The second one is revoicing. Revoicing is done with different methods, which is voiceover, of course, simul-sync, lip-sync, dubbing, which is the regular dubbing that you are used to watch when you consume content, especially on cable TV, big networks, streaming media, and narration dubbing, which is off-screen dubbing. Okay, so keep in mind it's rewriting and revoicing. Okay, so we'll always be going for the mango yellow for rewriting and the greenish blue for revoicing. So, okay, so the first question would be, who are the audiovisual linguists in the entertainment sector, of course? Well, we have the dubbing script adapters are the translators for scripts for dubbing purposes. Well, when we get there, sorry. Interlingual subtitling translators, of course. Remember that all the rewriting is yellow, right? So we're going into the interlingual subtitling translators who translate from the source language of the content into the target language of the content. Then we have interlingual subtitling for the deaf and hard of hearing, or SDH subtitles creators, which most of the times are translators from the same pool of translators. Sorry, but my throat is not good right now. That are doing transcription and in the same language. That is from English into English, from Spanish into Spanish, from French into French. But they are adding two very important elements, which are sound effects and name tags. So that way, again, people with hearing problems or deaf can consume content. Then we have the interlingual pivot language template creators, and these are people that also do a work in which what they're doing is, well, yes, they are translating from the source language, which is for pivot language templates is normally not English, into the target language, which is not really the actual target language, but the pivot language, which is English. So meaning most translators speak English because that is, the dominant language in this industry. So the interlingual pivot language template creator, what they do is that they are translating from their own language. Let's see, for example, in my case, I translate from Spanish into English. So let's see, it's like maybe I don't know, a Colombian or a Mexican soap opera, and I translate it into English. So that would become the pivot language template. So when I'm done, not only translating, but synchronizing, time coding the whole file, then that file becomes, again, the pivot language template that is the one that is given out to translators to all of the other regularly around 30 more languages in which a certain platform caters for. So my template that I just produced into English from my own language is going to be used by the translator into Mandarin, into French, into German, into any language, you name it, so that they can start from English into their own language. And it's got tons of annotations that make it much easier for the second translator into the actual target language to know what the mood is or what the context is, or if something is really like the register, this is like slang, this is very like rude, or something that is not there on the text, but it's like subtext that you provide for them. Also information about the source culture. So them too. And then we go into, like, of course, video game translators. Video games have both elements, and depending on the client, they sometimes want translations to be done only on the actual, like written messages of the video game, or sometimes there's both elements in which they translate those written messages to the video game player, but the whole story is also dubbed into the target language. So sometimes you have both, sometimes just the one. That's why they have both colors. And then we have interlingual dubbing script adapters, who are the actual translators that translate any given script from the source language into the target language. Those are the adapters, who are actual translators. We have the interlingual audio description script creators, and also this is a linguist that has that was provided with the audio description script normally in most companies now. It's like the latest trend that was done in the same language. So they are provided, if it's like an English program or series or movie, then someone produces a script, an audio description script creator produces the script into the same language, which is English, and again it is used as pivot language. So then that little script, which contains all the instances in which audio description is included and time coded into the actual content is given to the second translator that is translating into their own target language. So the ones creating the audio description script and the ones translating it, they are both also audiovisual translators. And finally, we go into re-speaking professionals. Re-speaking professionals do actual re-speaking of live subtitling or real-time captioning, normally used for live events, for example. Okay, so all of these linguists are considered audiovisual translators. So let's go to the next question. What are audiovisual translation modalities? You know, we don't have time, we wouldn't have time to go into all of them. As you saw, I just introduced you to just the people that work as audiovisual translators. Just imagine if we would go into each one of the numerous translations that we do for audiovisual. So we are going to cover here the two main methods that are subtitling and dubbing, okay? And then to start talking or explaining these two modalities, we have to, of course, start by saying which are the constraints of each of them. So subtitling constraints, okay. Normally you have the 2 lines, you have 37 to 42 characters per line, depending obviously on the client's preferences and the guidelines that they want you to abide to. Then you have the 17, well, this is what is normally set for the whole industry. So 17 characters per second, that's the reading speed for adult content, and 13 characters per second for children content. So those are the two different reading speed settings that we use. Then we have the sentence level line breaks and the client preferred formatting. Okay, so all of these means that our clients provide us with language specific and task type specific style guidelines, and again we need to adhere to those. Okay, then we go on to the dubbing constraints, which are like basically include like 3 different types of synchrony. There are the ones that are used to make the magic happen. So the first one is body movement synchrony, and that is also called kinetic synchrony, where translation must be consistent with gestures and body language. Then we have the phonetic synchrony or lip sync, which is the way you have heard about it, most likely. This is lip sync mimicking rounded vowels, bilabials, and labiodental consonants. This is to be observed solely in close-ups, extreme close-ups, or detailed shots of the lips. Okay, so what are these labials and bilabials and rounded vowels? And well, there are like the P, the B, the M, the F, and the V. Normally, those are the labials and bilabials, and we have open vowels too, which are the 3 vowels in which we open our mouth to pronounce, which are A, E, and O. And then we have the one semi-consonant, which is a W. Okay. All those have to be matched. And then we have the last type of synchrony, which is isochrony. The isochrony is the synchrony between utterances and pauses, where syllable count and actual on-screen duration matching are critical. This is, if you ask me, what is isochrony? Well, it's pauses versus utterances synchrony. So you have to match the actual duration of the line delivered in the original content. You have to match the same duration, not only of the whole message, but of independent words, preferably, especially if they include phonetic synchrony. So not that easy. Okay, so both modalities of audiovisual translation must tackle cultural references, register creative intent, plot flow and consistency, technical or specialized terms, research, non-binary, LGBTQ specific terms, and race and ethnicity related terms correspondence, among many other elements that we need to work with on a regular basis with every piece of content that you get to translate. This depends on obviously what type of content we're working on. It's becoming more and more common to be approached for a task if you have previous experience in the topic, for example. So, you know, you start doing your own like becoming specialized in a given topic, depending on sometimes luck at the beginning, because I was for example assigned I don't know, anything that has to do with chefs, you know, all these new realities with chefs. So maybe you did the first season and then they call you for the second season, and then there's more shows that they're producing that have to do with food and gastronomy and stuff. So they say, you know what, let's call this translator that translated this or the other show. So that's how you start getting specialized in our line of work. Okay, so let's start delving into each one of them. So dubbing adaptation, what it consists of is creating a new script based on the original script, reproducing the dialogues in it in the same order with an independent tag indicating the character's name and the time code where each line begins, rendering it into the target language every utterance found in the content script, spoken by any of the characters or background dialogue speakers by reformulating lines. Okay? This is kind of theory, you know. From here to the actual job, you do need to have a lot of experience, which of course you can only get if you get a shot at some point so that you can start out, right? As with anything else. This is an example of a script that is like very common to find, especially in our territory. When the translator has finally, okay, let's start from the beginning. So line 1, it says traducción, which stands for translation in Spanish, which means here is where the main title goes, but like already translated. So for these to be to be filled out means that whether you got the official main title translation from the client, which is most of the times that what happens, or sometimes, especially with dubbing, they ask the adapter to provide them with suggestions for the main title. Then you have here clave, which stands for code. Why? Because in this industry, we normally use code names for the content. You're not going to say The Simpsons season 23. Sometimes you may say, I don't know, Yellow Fantasy season 23 or something. And this is to protect, obviously, the content from piracy. And then we have here English and Spanish. Well, the translators, the names of the translators sometimes, and you have duration, the actual total running time of the content that you're working in, which information you get from the client, because that has to be official. This means this is what you will be get paid. So these times your per minute rate is what you will be what you will get paid. So that's why it's really important. Then we have the three columns here. The first one is a TC, which stands for time code. So when dealing with dubbing, we need to remember that we only need to provide the in time. That means when they start talking, when they start delivering, the exact moment where they start delivering the line. And you only need to worry about the minute and the seconds. So here, up here, it says, well, you know, after the actual code name, you have here real one, which means what you're looking at right now is real one. So that means every movie, for example, has a number of reels depending on its duration. So if it's a very long movie, it can go up to like, I don't know, maybe I've seen up to like 7 reels, which is what the actual master has, you know, from shooting. So of course, you don't need to say this is the first hour or the second hour of the content, because it says here reel one. So that's the reference. So on reel one, these first line comes in at minute 2 and second 51. Okay, then we have the character's name. So this is Frankie speaking, and then the actual dialogue, the line, he's saying, "Good morning." This is a translation into Spanish, of course. So remember that any and all lines that you see here already translated already had to go through the whole 3 synchronies analysis so that they match the content. You know, so there's a number of other codes that we use in dubbing. For example, here it says reacts, which means there's a reaction. So maybe he says, "Oh, great," you know, which just stands for muy bien. "Oh, great," and then goes like or something, or there's a reaction in the character, so that the actor, the talent that is reading these lines, can have a hint. It's, obviously, there's always the director who is directing them, who is telling them what the context of the scene is, because they don't get to see whole scenes at a time or the script, the whole script, but each actor gets the software that they work with at dubbing studios extracts their lines only for each of the scenes where they are speaking. So they don't get to see the whole thing. That's why the director, who previously watched the whole content, tells them, "You should be indignated right now, because right before this line, these other characters insulting you by telling you blah, blah, blah. So you know how you should be reacting, how should you be delivering every line." Okay, so that's why we have a number of things. For example, here if you see, it says, "Buddy," you know. So there's a symbol here, which for these dubbing studio specifically has, this is for the something that is marked by their software, which has another element into their screen when they're sitting down, reading, doing the actual acting at the studio, where they have the phonetic way in which they should be pronouncing buddy, because if you pronounce this in by someone that only speaks Spanish, it would be buddy, right? So then they need to know that this should be pronounced as buddy. That's why there's this symbol here. So there's a number of things that you have to take care of also as you are working through the script into your target language. Okay, then going into subtitling. A subtitle file is created by translating every line and on-screen text on the provided template from the template's language, generally English. Well, this was previously mostly because as of late, especially with all these uh, streaming platforms exploding, they are now producing content in so many countries and from so many languages that are different from the traditional dominating languages that we have had in the past, which were mainly, maybe English, of course, and then maybe, I don't know, French or other languages that were used much more commonly. But now you have Farsi, for example. You have not only languages, but a lot of also variations and original nations languages and stuff that is really specialized, right? So then they're translating the lines into the target language and timing each event accordingly so that it comes in and out on time. Thus creating a new file that, after undergoing QC, which, remember, QC is very important. This is done by another very experienced audiovisual translator, is ready to be digitally attached to the corresponding content so it can be consumed by that language's region or market. So that's subtitling, okay? This is just an example of a file, a subtitling file, the way you would be looking at it if you were working on it. So this is Subtitle Edit. It's a software that a lot of us really like. It's freeware, and what you're looking at here is, well, of course, you have the video for the content, and you have the video player, and then you have the regular controls here to play it, to pause it, and to fast forward and to go back, of course. And then you have here, like below, you have the sound wave, which for us is really important because that's a graphic representation of all the content's audio track. So you can time every message going in and out, both by looking at the video and by looking at the sound wave, so that you can match it more accurately, So this is obviously we use it very much. Like, you go here, you click here, which is exactly when these speaker is starting to speak, and then you right click, and then you set that as the in time for that subtitle, for example. And then you go to wherever he or she stops talking, and then you do the same. You go to that exact frame, and then you right click and set that as the out time, for example. So you can do that, or you can do it with the video and then just double checking with the sound wave. So what we have here on the actual file that we're working on is, you have the subtitle number on your far left. So here we are on the 500s. So subtitle 508, 509, 510, and so forth. Then you have the start time for each of the subtitles, and then the end time for each of the subtitles. So as I was explaining before, with dubbing, you only have to worry about the start time or in time, but never about the out time or end time. In this case, not only that, but when working with subtitling, you have to provide the exact time code for the start and the end of the subtitle down to the frame. That means, depending on the configuration of each video, what type of video they were using while shooting, most of the time it's like 23 frames per second. And so you go to the exact moment, as I said, and then you double check. It's like 00, that means that they haven't gone into the second hour of the content. So this is minute 28 and second 17, and then you go on to the frames. The next, after the start time and the end time, the next column is the actual duration of every subtitle. So the duration is in seconds and frames. So this would be, the duration would be 1.6 or 1.66 seconds, or you can also read it as 1 second with 66 parts of the second second. So that is your duration. And finally, this is the actual dialogue shown in the subtitle, in each of the subtitles. Remember, each line is one subtitle. Okay, so if there are 2 lines, like in this one, that is the one that we're seeing on screen. As you can see here, it says, "I know none of you were expecting," and then on the second line, an extended stay up here. So here there's this code which makes the text, break into 2 lines, and that's how the second line is divided from the first line. Okay, and then, for example, you have these other indications, which means that these 2 subtitles, for example, are someone talking off screen or something, and they may be speaking in a scene where they are not on screen at the time when the subtitle comes on screen. So that, or they're talking through a phone, through a speaker phone, through media like TV or radio or something. So that's why what these means is it won't show as these subtitles that you're looking on screen, but it will show as italics. Okay, so this is basically a regular file in which we work every day. That's subtitling. Okay, so then let's go on to our working conditions. Content creators call these translation tasks origination. That's the way they are called, that's the way they are invoiced and everything, which is another way of saying authoring, as we originate our own text when either translating subtitles or adapting a script for dubbing. Giving it involves reformulating the message and rewording every line into the target language. Nonetheless, only content producers get recognition for actual authoring in this territory, may I add. Because France, for example, in France, a lot of work has been done with the government so that every audiovisual translator gets royalties, not only of the content that is like currently showing, but on every rerun that there is on any piece of content that they translated at any point, which would be amazing to have, like, all over the world. These should be rules, regulations, and laws that should be implemented all around the world. Unfortunately, there's second-class translators too in this industry, and our territory is one of them. And I'm explaining why. So this is a hard fact. Latin American subscribers for the #1 streaming giant alone amount to 37.54 million, generating approximately 14% of the company's global revenue. This is according to Statista in 2021. So just so you can wrap your mind around this. Spanish, of course, unites most countries in the Americas, including the Spanish-speaking diaspora in the United States and Canada. So the wider component of rates that is not taken into account as it should is one of the problems. The most common industry practice aims to make all content consumable, by neutralizing localization so that Spanish-speaking audiences from Canada through Patagonia can enjoy it. That is, words from rich regional variations must be watered down, looked up in several bilingual dictionaries, country-specific lingo, glossaries, and dictionaries, and resources of, for example, the Royal Academy of Spanish Academies Association, such as the Diccionario de Americanismos, and replaced with more extended and more digestible, neutral words that all or most countries can make sense of. This is easily said than done. This is what we need to do on a daily basis, okay, when working in our territory, which entails for us to nail uniformity in every single word, idiom, turn of phrase, step phrase, joke, saying, lullaby, and cultural references in every series, film, documentary, video game, or commentary we work on day in and day out, which adds an additional layer of training, research, and verification, and has given rise to an artificial Spanish that big players in the industry call neutral Spanish for marketing purposes only, may I add. The most notorious is usually the one used in dubbing, which in Spanish we call español doblajero, or dubbing like Spanish. Dubbing like Spanish. Nevertheless, there is a gap in industry rates that rank Castilian Spanish, or Peninsular Spanish, any way you want to call it, higher than Latin American Spanish, and therefore we're paid 33% less than Spaniards in every task we perform, although we put in many more working hours neutralizing, as Peninsular Spanish linguists are not asked to observe uniformity at all. The content translated just the once and just in a single way is consumed by the whole country of Spain and their territories. So the excuse for this is cost of living in Spain versus that in Latin American countries, despite the fact cities like Buenos Aires, Mexico City, Bogotá, Santiago, or Lima, you name it, have not only an all times and increasingly high cost of living, but also inflation rates European countries very rarely experience. And furthermore, many of us have bilingual cultural families, backgrounds, and are therefore based in different countries at different times, especially as freelancers, should at least be able to enjoy that one perk, having been denied benefits or seniority by the industry giants, right? So this is just an example from the European one from mactrends.net and the Latin American one from Statista again, of how different and clashing inflation is in a whole decade for Europe and for Latin America. So we can see that for Europe, the worst year was in this last whole decade was 2011, where they were a little over 3, right? And then there were years in which, for example, in 2015, they not only did not have inflation, but they had a little bit of a superávit. Whereas in Latin America, you can see that every single year we are like going through the roof in inflation. So way over what they had in their worst year, like every year. And our worst year is it's way over twice as much as their inflation in the 1 year, in a whole decade. So this is just, something to also think about. So the so-called talent crunch is actually due to a refusal to pay fair rates to experienced audiovisual translators. Burned out and underpaid, they are leaving the industry in droves, despite the soaring appetite for non-English language shows that, and the ever-growing streaming market, So, I mean, the content keeps growing and delivery channels and providers and extension throughout the globe, yet this is not reflected on the way our rates are paid, because as I was saying, when we were working on that first digital boom, which was the DVD and Blu-ray market boom, this was like over 10 years ago. We had rates that were more or less twice as much as the rates we have now. So that's just nonsensical. Anyway you look at it, right? If there's more demand, then why are we being paid half as much as we were paid back then? So social media burn of poor subtitling or dubbing, mainly subtitling, of popular content, such as what happened with Squid Game, is due to such practices in our industry. Content producers not wanting to pay fair rates and resorting to use, for example, in this case, automatic translation, and having a one single layer edition afterwards, performed by independent editors also, of instead of securing a senior audiovisual translator for the whole series, which is what streamlines the consistency process across episodes and seasons, and the only way to secure the highest quality for this content translation. But this is just the things, the state of things right now. So that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. It's a little bit out of the ordinary because this wasn't an academic presentation. It wasn't really about theory. It has to do more about, again, bringing visibility to us, to our profession, our dignity, especially in territories like ours in Latin America, and making more people, and especially our consumers, aware of how we do our job, what it takes to do our job. I didn't even, went into the studies and the experience that you have to secure a good spot, or at least to be, because we are all freelancers working for a company that has decent rates, and a lot of us have postgraduate degrees and stuff, and no one really pays you for that. But that goes into quality. So this is it again, and catch me on LinkedIn if you want. There's the link anytime. And send any questions or requests for specialized training content here on YouTube to our ATA Audiovisual Division social media, Facebook or LinkedIn channels. Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.